Most people believe that sexual magnetism is found in beauty, in a perfect body, in a scent, or in carefully chosen words. But that is a fundamental mistake. True magnetism has nothing to do with outward appearances and everything to do with inner energy, with the unseen but deeply felt field of psychic presence. Carl Jung once said that what you repress controls you. What you integrate radiates from you. That single idea contains the essence of attraction, because what makes someone irresistible is not what they show on the surface, but what they carry silently within. A body can be beautiful, but if the energy behind it is insecure, needy, or false, it quickly becomes repulsive. Real magnetism arises not from show, but from silence, from the steady gaze that seems to pierce invisible layers, from an inner steadiness that makes another person want to linger near you without knowing why. It's not about having something to prove, but about holding desire without rushing, holding the fear of rejection without hiding, holding the tension between wanting and waiting. Jung saw the unconscious as a living reservoir full of instincts, shadows, and fears that shape how others perceive us, even when we try to conceal them. That is why some people radiate an inexplicable but powerful attractiveness. They have integrated their shadows, embraced their fears, and accepted their instincts instead of denying them. This inner integration creates depth, and depth is magnetic. You can feel when someone has layers, when they carry themselves with quiet density. That's why copying a style, mimicking seduction tricks, or imitating a persona never works. Attraction does not come from gestures. It comes from the inner state that gives those gestures meaning. Jung spoke often about archetypes and autonomous complexes, those fragments of personality that live their own lives inside us. A person full of unresolved complexes radiates confusion, while an integrated person radiates order, calm, and coherence. If you want to be magnetic, the first rule is simple: never rush to explain yourself. Most people fear silence, filling every pause with justification or chatter in an attempt to be accepted. But true magnetism belongs to the one who can remain silent without wavering, the person who does not adapt to the expectations of others, who does not change their energy to fit the room. That self-possession creates curiosity, and curiosity is the first spark of desire. Whoever does not hurry controls the rhythm. The second rule is equally important: never seek to conquer. The moment you try to impress, you reveal neediness, and nothing repels more than obvious neediness. The most attractive people are those who move lightly and effortlessly, as if in perfect harmony with themselves, as if they require nothing from anyone. This isn't arrogance, it's fullness. It is the state of a person who does not seek validation but offers presence. It is the archetype of the silent sage who carries such inner peace that being around them feels like freedom. Jung described libido not only as sexual energy but as vital energy, the life force that can be consciously directed. Those who invest that energy in observing rather than displaying see what others overlook, and whoever sees deeply can touch deeply. The third rule is to master your presence before trying to be present. Most think presence means drawing attention, but true presence is about influencing a space even in silence. You can captivate without standing in the spotlight. Magnetic people do not shout for recognition, but their absence is always noticed because the energy they leave behind is unforgettable. How is this presence cultivated? By being fully here, not lost in the past, not anxious about the future, not hiding behind roles or comparisons, but observing, alert, alive in the moment. Such people do not look often, but when they do, their gaze leaves a trace. They do not touch often, but when they do, the memory remains. Touch does not need force when it comes from someone within a weight. And here unfolds the subtlest secret: the control of expectation. Desire grows in the interval, in the space between what could happen and what does not. Dopamine, the brain's chemical of desire, is not triggered by the reward itself, but by the anticipation of reward. Magnetism is born in this anticipation, in the withheld gesture. In the moment when you could touch, but choose to pause. When you could praise, but remain silent. when you could approach but lean back slightly instead. Whoever masters expectation masters desire. Jung believed that the tension of opposites was the true engine of psychic transformation. And magnetism is nothing less than this dance of opposites, approach and retreat, showing and hiding, nearness and distance. Most people rush to clarify everything, to give everything, to secure everything at once. But attraction requires mystery, and mystery requires restraint. Desire thrives on suggestion, on doors left half open, on words that imply more than they reveal. When you explain everything, you kill the mystery, and where there is no mystery, there can be no desire. The unconscious craves symbols, and magnetic people embody them. Their gestures are layered with meaning, a pause that speaks louder than a speech, an enigmatic smile, an ambiguous silence. None of this can be faked. The unconscious in others instantly senses what is authentic and what is not. But when gestures arise from someone who has truly mastered themselves, the effect is undeniable. The body itself begins to communicate differently. The rhythm of their breathing, the steadiness of their hands, the intensity of their eyes, all transmit a silent energy. Jung spoke of the collective unconscious and the archetypes that live there. And when someone embodies an archetype of depth, strength, and freedom, they transform into a living symbol. Unforgettable and magnetic, they enter the thoughts and even the dreams of others, because the unconscious recognizes them as something more than a person. They become an image, a pattern, a desire. The fourth rule of magnetism is emotional synchronization. It is not about time on the clock, but about sensing the right psychological moment, when closeness is welcome, when interruption creates tension, when silence becomes unbearable and needs to be broken. Mastering attraction is like touching a piano key at exactly the right instant, not too soon, not too late, but when silence itself is aching for sound. This cannot be faked or rehearsed. It is learned only through presence, through paying attention to the invisible field between yourself and the other. That is where magnetism is born, in tension held with ease, in mystery offered without effort, in presence that speaks louder than words. And when you learn this, you no longer chase attention, you become it. When you notice that the body opens even before it moves, you are witnessing what Carl Jung called synchronicity, the mysterious interface between the inner and outer world, where presence becomes perception and attraction is born. If you are collected within yourself, your energy holds effortlessly, but if you are scattered inside, you force interactions, and forced energy always repels. Emotional synchronization is a dance, and like any dance, rhythm matters. The dancer who tries to lead too soon stumbles, while the one who hesitates too long loses the beat. Magnetism is this rhythm, the rare ability to perceive the emotional cadence of another person without losing your own center. A magnetic presence never feels invasive. It adapts gracefully to the other's energy while maintaining its own integrity, entering the emotional field of another as if it already belonged there, yet withdrawing at the very peak so as never to become predictable. This withdrawal leaves behind emotional memory, the haunting sense that something meaningful has happened even without clear explanation. Neuroscience confirms this. The brain does not hold on to what is neatly concluded, but to what is unfinished, to what lingers unresolved. What we remember most is not the most intense moment, but the one left open. This leads to the fifth rule of magnetism. Use absence as a language. Many believe constancy is the secret, but constant presence dulls the senses. The human body stops reacting to stimuli that never change. What is interrupted at the right moment, however, lingers forever. Strategic absence, conscious withdrawal, deliberate pauses, these do not punish but create contrast, and contrast sharpens desire. The one who is too present loses mystery, but the one who withdraws elegantly at the height of connection becomes unforgettable. Jung said that where there is no consciousness, fate manifests, and in relationships, fate often appears as projection. Ghosts, symbols, and unfinished moments seduce more deeply than predictable presence because they occupy the imagination. Absence in magnetism is not rejection. It is an invitation, a silent question. Do you still feel me even when I am not here? If the answer is yes, the bond lives not in the body but in the psyche. And bonds rooted in the psyche cannot be broken by distance. But absence must be used with elegance, never as revenge or manipulation. It works only when it trusts that its trace speaks louder than constant reassurance. The sixth rule is to make touch a gateway. Most people touch out of reflex, habit, or need, but magnetic contact arises from intention, from a presence so full that even the smallest gesture feels like a revelation. A light brush on the arm, a hand that lingers just a fraction of a second longer than expected, a steady palm on the shoulder, all seem simple but carry enormous emotional density when given consciously. Jung said the body carries psychic content, and in touch, the body becomes a messenger. A magnetic touch transmits affection, strength, safety, even mystery, without the need for words. The body, in this way, becomes a map, not one to explore recklessly, but to decipher patiently. Magnetic people touch less, but they touch with precision, activating the brain's ancient limbic system, which responds not to logic, but to sensation, smell, temperature, and rhythm. True seduction is not about what is seen, but about what is felt inwardly, and the body as radar only works for those fully present in the moment. Those distracted miss the dilation of pupils, the subtle shift of breath, the electric change in skin. To perceive this requires extraordinary self-control, because desire pushes toward haste, yet magnetism is born of the opposite, the calm of those who feel desire, yet hold it, transforming impulse into presence. Jung did not see desire as an enemy, but as raw energy waiting to be shaped. When mastered, that energy turns into a penetrating gaze, a subtle gesture, an aura that feels like silent electricity. It is not about giving your entire story, but about leaving enough space for the other to imagine. This is the true secret. Magnetism hints, suggests, and leaves gaps that the unconscious rushes to fill. Jung said the unconscious always seeks wholeness, and we are drawn to those who seem to carry the missing part of our psyche. Fascination arises not because someone is perfect, but because they reflect what we wish to complete in ourselves. That is why unforgettable encounters often feel mysterious. The conscious mind does not understand why, but the unconscious is deeply stirred. The seventh rule is to never repeat patterns. Human desire dies in predictability. Routine numbs the senses, even in love. Relationships rarely die from lack of care, but from repetition. The same words, the same gestures, the same rhythms played endlessly. Jung described psychic energy as spiral, not linear, meaning that desire needs movement, variation, and surprise. A magnetic presence therefore never sends the same signal twice. One day it is warmth, the next restraint. Today fiery, tomorrow serene. This variation is not chaos, but a subtle shift in vibration, creating a field that always feels fresh yet grounded. Sometimes presence feels like fire, other times like mist, and in that nuance lies endless discovery. Predictability kills attraction, but so does overwhelming novelty. Too much change creates fear, too much sameness creates boredom. Magnetism thrives in the delicate balance between the familiar and the mysterious, the safe and the unknown. The art lies in modulation, creating variation within the same essence, weaving continuity with surprise, depth with lightness, silence with presence. A magnetic person never over-explains, never overshares, never repeats the same emotional gesture too many times, because they understand that desire feeds on what is unfinished, on what remains just out of reach. This is why magnetism is not about being desired. It is about being unforgettable. True allure is not in beauty, status, or performance, but in the lingering impression you leave behind. The body may forget details, but the unconscious never forgets how someone made it feel. That feeling, half complete, half mysterious, remains alive long after the moment passes, shaping dreams, desires, and silent longings. Jung's wisdom reminds us that the most magnetic people are not those who chase attention, but those who embody mystery, rhythm, variation, and presence, becoming symbols in the unconscious of others. And symbols, once awakened, cannot be forgotten. Magnetism is not a trick, it's a force, and Jung understood it as deeply rooted in both the personal and the collective unconscious. The eighth rule is to appeal to primitive instincts. The rational mind is slow and logical, but true desire awakens in older places, the senses, the skin, the breath. Every detail matters, the rhythm of your speech, the cadence of your breathing, the way you walk into a room. The body registers more than words. Jung emphasized that archetypes live within us all: the silent hunter, the intuitive goddess, the calm sage, and when you embody these archetypes, you awaken instinctive reactions born from thousands of years of evolution. A gaze that lingers a moment longer than expected creates tension, while one that leaves too soon conveys insecurity. But a steady, present gaze infused with silent intention awakens imagination, and imagination fuels desire more powerfully than touch, because a look charged with symbolic weight lingers in the unconscious long after it's gone. The ninth rule is to create sensory dependence, not addiction, but a signature. Every magnetic person develops a language of gestures, scents, tones, and pauses that become unforgettable. It's not just the kiss, but the silence before it. Not just the touch, but the deliberate rhythm that cannot be replicated by anyone else. That's why absence becomes so painful. It isn't the body that's missed, but the experience that only you created. Jung said the unconscious feeds on symbols. Magnetism makes you a symbol of desire, presence, and depth. When you're absent, emptiness is felt because nothing else can take your place. The 10th and final rule is to desire intensely but master with elegance. The greatest mistake is to confuse mastery with suppression. Desire is essential. It fuels warmth, presence, authenticity. But magnetism is the art of desiring without rushing, holding the fire without letting it consume you. Jung compared transformation to alchemy. Raw desire becomes refined energy. Whoever channels their fire becomes unforgettable. Their voice lingers days later. Their touch pulses long after the moment passes, because everything was done with intention, not impulse. And intention is rare. Most live fragmented, distracted, and afraid, but those who live whole radiate an energy that heals, elevates, and inspires without needing to manipulate. At this point, magnetism transcends attraction. It becomes transformation. You are no longer just a man or woman. You become a symbol in someone's unconscious, the missing piece their psyche yearns for. Desire evolves into legacy. Real magnetism is not about conquering, but awakening. Not about clinging, but about leaving a lasting imprint. Your silence becomes eloquent, your absence meaningful, your presence unforgettable. From today forward, your touch can carry intention, your gaze can awaken imagination, and your presence can transform the room. You won't simply attract, you will be remembered. Because Jung's truth is clear, the unconscious shapes destiny, and when you master magnetism, you consciously shape not only your presence, but the way you live in the inner world of others. If this message resonated with you, don't just let it pass, carry it forward. Magnetism isn't about tricks, it's about presence, energy, and transformation. Subscribe now for more Carl Jung-inspired insights on psychology, relationships, and self-mastery. Like, share, and leave your thoughts below. Your voice matters here. Join a community that goes beyond surface attraction and dives into the depth of human connection, desire, and true transformation.